A lot of times when we work with lunar cycles in the spiritual community, we tend to focus on the new moon or on the full moon. And while both of these phases of the lunar cycle are important, there are other important phases to the lunar cycle as well. And today, what we're going to be focusing on is the third quarter phase of the lunar cycle. Now, before we talk into that and before we get into a tarot reading for some guided messages around that as well, my name is Trishna, and I am part of the Celestial Starseed Temple. You can follow myself as well as Dora at Celestial Starseed Temple on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. All right, let's get into the tarot reading. Let's get into talking about the third quarter moon cycle. And actually, let's just start by talking about the lunar cycle in general and then honing in more specifically so you can really understand how it all works together and start integrating it into your own practice to bring additional peace, to bring additional clarity, to understand yourself better, and to learn to work with the universe, and therefore align yourself to the universe, and therefore align to your desires. Because when we're in flow with the universe, we're also in flow with all of our desires and our highest good. So let's get into it. So, in the lunar cycle, there are actually 8 main phases. We, of course, start with the new moon, and then we move into different phases. One of those is the first quarter moon, that is the third phase. And usually with the new moon, we start setting intentions. And with the first quarter moon, that's when we start taking action on those intentions. And in between, there is a phase where we start planning. Then we move into the full moon, and that's where we get to celebrate. That's where we get to see the pinnacle in the sky, the bright full moon in the sky, and reap the fruits, reap the rewards of all of our efforts in the first 2 weeks of the cycle. And of course, there is a phase in between that as well. And then we move into the third quarter moon phase, and that's primarily what we're going to be talking about here today. And during that third quarter phase, that's when we start reflecting, that's when we start healing, that is when we start preparing ourselves for a new cycle, which will be the new moon cycle coming in again. So the third quarter moon, which is what we're going to be focusing on today, is going to be about checking in with ourselves since the full moon. What have we learned? What are we releasing? What needs to be healed? And setting the stage for the intentions we're going to be setting in the new moon. See, a lot of people believe that when it is time for the new moon, that's when we should be setting intentions. And I would say that that is mostly true. But a lot of times with the new moon, we don't really know what intentions we want to set. We have maybe some subconscious ideas, but it hasn't really risen to that conscious phase yet. And so what we can do now to help us through that process is start reflecting and start planting those seeds so that we become aware of them closer to the new moon, and we can set intentions with more focus and more magic and in alignment with the lunar cycle. So let's get into the third quarter lunar phase reading that we're going to be doing today. What we're going to be focusing on today is we're going to do a check-in reading, and then we're also going to be doing a intention setting reading. So let's check in with how we've been doing since the full moon, and then let's start preparing ourselves for what intentions we may want to set in the next coming new moon. Okay, let's get into it. So when it comes to the check-in, let's look at how we are currently doing today. We have the 9 of Swords, the Sun, and the 6 of Swords as well. So at this point in time, it's maybe been a little bit rough. Full moons can bring up a lot of things that we have not really focused on, that we push to the side, things that we still need to resolve. And that's what the third quarter moon is really great at doing, because this is the healing phase. This is allowing it to surface and letting it go phase. So it's natural that right now we might be feeling a little bit 9 of Swords-ish, which is where there are things that are keeping us up at night. There are things that we feel a little bit angsty about. We have stresses. We can't really shake things off just yet. Then we also have the Sun card, which means that this is something that wants to be focused on. When the sun is shining, when light is shining on something, that is what the focus should be on. And the Sun card is also about success. So this is a time where it's really important that we do focus on the things that are stuck so we can let them go. And it's also important for us to know that it will be successful. Our efforts will be successful, both in terms of releasing this, but also in terms of the intentions that we set at the beginning of this lunar cycle in the last new moon. We also have the Six of Swords. So we may have felt like we are alone right now. And that's natural. Whenever we are in this cycle, this part of the cycle, the lunar cycle, we start to withdraw a little bit because in order to be able to heal and to release, we have to be paying attention to what's really coming up for us. And in order to pay attention to that, we do have to make an internal journey. And that can feel a little bit lonely, but just know that everybody else is feeling the same way and going through very similar cycles. It just may look different because we each go through this with a different flavor. But everybody's kind of going through a similar cycle, so you're not actually alone. And if you do have people in your life that are in alignment with your lunar practices, then you can talk to them about it. And this could be a really valuable time where you either talk to them about it and have discussions and unearth even more that wants to be released, or you can actually use this time to journal. And in that way, you're talking not just to yourself, you're talking to your journal, but really you're talking to your intuition. You're talking to another aspect of yourself through that journal. All right, so that's how we're doing right now, and it's going to turn out well, so don't worry too much. Okay, so now let's move into what types of intentions we might want to set for this new moon so we can kind of get that heads up now so that we're prepared sooner rather than later for the new moon cycle. And when the new moon shows up, we're not still trying to figure it out because we have some ideas now. We're planting the seeds and they'll start to sprout a little bit sooner. So let's get into that reading. For the intention setting that we're going to be doing for this upcoming new moon cycle, we have the Eight of Cups, we have the Hermit, and we have the Ace of Wands. Okay, so the energy is already improving. So this is telling me that if we work on the check-in items, if we really allow those things to come to the surface and talk to people about it or journal about it, we will have the success that was indicated by the Sun card, and we're going to be moving into more positive energy for this new moon cycle. And the new moon is going to be in Virgo. So what intentions can we set for the Virgo new moon? Well, with the Eight of Cups, this tells me that there are still things that we may want to release or we may want to reassess. And there might be other things that we want to stick around with longer than we originally intended. So when we reassess things, sometimes it means we got to let it go, but sometimes it means, hey, maybe we should actually stick it out a little bit longer. So for each one of us, it's going to be a bit of a different story, a bit of a different flavor, but that's really what the Eight of Cups is trying to tell us right now, is this is a time for us to revision what our life should look like, what we want it to look like, and revision what should stay and what should go, and take a look at, are we allowing our ego to choose for us, or are we really diving deep into ourselves and allowing our soul to have a say in the matter as well? It's important that we allow all parts of ourselves to be a part of the decision-making table, to be at the table with us so that we make the best decisions. Then we have the Hermit. So the Hermit is traditionally the card of Virgo, so it makes sense that this would show up in the new moon intention setting portion of the tarot card reading. So the Virgo is about that inner reflection. So during this new moon, it is going to be a time where we've just come out of this third quarter energy of releasing and being self-aware. And this is something that we may want to do a little bit more of as we enter into the new moon in Virgo. However, there is a caution here that you don't only focus on being that hermit, that you make sure that you get out there, that you're socializing, that you are getting experiences. Because sometimes when we get into Virgo energy and we start getting very self-reflective, we forget about the rest of the world. And we just want to be that hermit. We want to be in our zen, or we want to be in our feelings, or we want to be in our thoughts. But what's really helpful is when we get out in the world and we have experiences, we read books, we talk to people, we go and have adventures, go to fairs, whatever it is, because in those experiences, we're able to perceive other things. We're able to experience other things, and that gives us some food, some fuel for the internal analysis that we are doing. So experiences actually help us have even deeper realizations about ourselves and can actually accentuate the hermit experience of going within and having awareness. External situations can bring us deeper awareness of ourselves, because as within, so without, and also as without, so within. And finally, we have the Ace of Wands. So just remember that during this time period, that Spirit really has our back, that this may be a time where we are focused more on our mental desires or on taking action, depending on each person, but really feeling more on the mental desires makes sense given that it's Virgo energy. So what are we wanting to think about? What are we wanting to plan? But just make sure that you aren't staying in planning mode. Virgos are really great at creating routines, getting things done, but sometimes it can get a little bit stuck in the planning phase of things. So, what intention should you set during this time period based off of what we have heard here today? The first one is set intentions to be able to have greater awareness of yourself via the Hermit card. So, set intentions to have greater awareness and reflection of the self, but also set intention to go out in the world and have experiences and allow that to fuel even more of your awareness and your insightful, creative, innovative, inspired ideas. Also, know that you're going to be thinking about a lot of things. So set intention to be able to have really powerful planning processes, but also set intentions to be able to understand the plan, accept the plan, and be able to take action on that said plan to make sure that we're moving our energy forward as well. If we set these kinds of intentions, we're going to have a lot more success during this next lunar cycle. Now, the final card I want to share is the bottom of the deck. The bottom of the deck is the Nine of Pentacles. If we focus on what we have talked about here today, then we are going to start bringing in more abundance and more success. We're going to start stepping into our independence significantly more. This may be a time in your life where you're really wanting to step into your independence. Maybe you feel really tied down or trapped, or maybe you feel like, you know what, I've kind of been going along on other people's paths, kind of going along following their coattails or trusting their strategy or their vision. And I would like to start focusing on myself. I'd like to start being brave. I'd like to start thinking about what I want for my own life. And I want to start acting on that and trusting that. If you focus on these things, you're going to open up the energy. And just know that that energy is in the card. So you already have it. And this is a really great time for you to start practicing self-trust and that independence that you are looking for. So wonderful, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey where we talked about the third quarter moon. And we talked about how that fits into the lunar cycle. And we talked about where energy is right now. And if you're not feeling that great, it's okay. Things are about to change and you are going to have success with where you are right now. And we also talked about some intentions that we can set for the new moon in Virgo, which is coming up just around the corner next week. So thank you guys so much and catch you in the next video.